You acted like you weren't going to be good at this. You were very good.
Yeah.
I've been accused of a lot of stuff.
All right. Well, we will start.
I'm ready.
All right. Welcome. Let me introduce who we are. We're the Marion Forum Group. 4 friends who got together to start a podcast to feature what Marion County citizens think about issues in the county. The series that we're going to create spotlights topics, vibrant stories, insights, and voices from our community here in Marion County. And the series is called Marion Voices. I'm your host for today, Tom Tull, and I'm here with Robert Shaw, Bob Raymer, and David Kuhn. We're the creators of the series, and we're thrilled to embark on this journey with you. Over the next hour, we're diving into why, how, and what we hope to accomplish with Marion Voices. So, let's start off about talking about why. Guys, why are we doing this?
Why? My name is Robert Shaw. As Tom just introduced me, I'm looking at trying to talk to a lot of people in Marion County and find out what their views are. Just recently ran for office, and one thing I found out was that instead of focusing on things that we have that are different, when we talked about things we had in common, we had a lot of things that we had in common that I found pretty interesting. And I know you knew we were talking at that time that those are some of the things that we should be addressing in this county. It's different segments of the county that are separated, and they have no idea. If I live over at Stone Creek, I have no idea what's going on in town, or maybe what's going on over on top of the world or over by the Equestrian Center. It's so many different segments and groups of people here that we just want to get a good idea of what's going on in the county and how we can advance and go forward.
Yeah, I have to second that, Robert. There's a lot going on in Marion County that people are only generally aware of. And this is an opportunity to delve into some things that are a part of our community, whether it's has to do with education, it has to do with culture, it has to do with public service. And not only discuss that, but with the people that are involved with it. And I think it's a great chance to bring their stories to the air, to share with people, and get responses from the community on that. It's a way of sharing some knowledge and gaining knowledge. So I think that's a good reason for us to be doing this.
Yeah, what I'm interested about too is the fact that we want to get you listeners involved too. We want to kind of make this almost like a town hall, an open forum, where when we discuss a topic, we will give some advance notice of what we're going to be speaking on. And we really encourage you listeners to send in questions about that topic, or send in comments or your thoughts on that. And we will try to incorporate those into the show so that we have authentic citizen voices, voicing their ideas in this show. And that, again, it's to help us understand that we have much more in common than we have differences, and that we want Marion County to be a good place to live and to raise a family, and we need to kind of encourage talking to each other to make that happen. We want to be the change that we would like to see here in the county. So that's kind of why I'm excited about this project.
I'm very excited about it also.
And it's long overdue. The question we asked ourselves was, why now? And my response is, well, it's a timely thing. It's a new year, and then there's new challenges. And this is an effort to use technology, particularly AI, which is something we'll discuss a little bit down the road here, to share information and ideas with the community.
Should we give a little background on ourselves? I think we let people know
a good idea.
Who we are.
Go ahead there, Robert.
Again, my name is Robert Shaw. I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I was born and raised there. Went to high school there. After high school, went to college for a short stint. Found out that just wasn't going to make it. Didn't have enough money to do that. Ended up going into the Air Force. In the Air Force, I had a lot of fun. Got to travel the world. My first assignment was in the Netherlands, so spent 4 years over there. Being in Europe and coming from America, you get to learn a lot about Americans from an outside point of view, which helped me grow a little bit as a person. Spent 12 years in the military, did a lot of traveling, played a lot of sports. After that, got out, did a lot of different jobs, then ended up getting a career, that's what we call it, in the oil and gas industry, worked for Phillips 66. It was very good, worked as an operator, went to training, went to operations supervisor, got to do a little bit of traveling with that, so that's my background.
Okay. Well, it's hard for me I'm 75 years old, so it's hard for me to kind of focus in on just a couple of things that kind of have influenced me greatly. But I grew up in upstate New York, not the city area, and on a farm, and sort of grew up with those middle class values, and went to church from a young age, United Methodist. Have stayed with that church, and I do know that one of the things I learned in that church, which has stayed with me my whole life, is service to community and to people around me. I know, and I'm not going to quote a lot of scripture on these shows, but Matthew 22 verses 35 through 40 is about what is the greatest commandment. And Jesus said the greatest commandment is to love God with your whole heart, mind, soul, and that the second commandment is like it, which is to love your neighbor as yourself. And those two things, kind of have motivated me to be more community conscious and public spirited. My career was in public education for 34 years, as a teacher for half of that time, and then as an administrator, so that I've seen both perspectives of public education. And matter of fact, that's one of the shows or series that I'm going to host, hopefully, is on public education here in Marion County. So that's kind of my background.
Well, my name's Bob Raymer. I'm the other Bob of this trio. And I'm a baby boomer. I grew up in Western New York and went to college. And after college, I had a chance to work in some different places, New York City, Boston. Eventually, I became a federal employee and spent my career there in kind of the front lines for the United States, and had a good career with that. I have to admit that an inflection point for me was 9/11. That changed everything for me in terms of the future I was looking at. And I went on to work in the private sector as a result of that. There was now demands that we do more to protect the country. And I ended my career with that before I retired to Florida. And since that time, I've been looking for opportunities to address some of the things that this community is concerned about. And for me, this was a good fit. So here we are, kicking this off and hopefully getting our voices over to you and hearing back from you.
It's kind of funny. I was thinking, sometimes it's always good to start with a joke when you start a thing. I was thinking, well, three guys walked into a bar. Well, wait a minute. We didn't walk into a bar. We walked into a coffee shop.
There you go. Yeah.
So,
and now we're in a studio.
Studio.
We're upgrading as we go along here, and it's a good place to be.
Yeah.
We all came to Marion County for different reasons, but we're all happy to be here.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing to me, even into the brief time I've been here, it's only been a couple of years, to watch it grow. And I think that's going to be something that we may be able to share with our listeners, because development is rapid. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of new things, and there's a lot of interesting developments. So we're going to be talking about that too.
Yep. Okay.
You guys are sliding in a lot of our future stuff.
Oh,
I like
not
how
yet.
you're doing that.
We not yet. We've got a whole long list, Robert. So
Yeah, and we do. We sat down and we kind of thought about all the different topics that we could talk about on this show. And once we got started, I was afraid we would only come up with maybe 2 or 3 things that we could talk about, and so that would be a pretty short series. But actually, when we got down putting ideas on paper, it's just huge. There's all kinds of things that we could talk about Marion County, and Marion County has some really good things to offer folks, which is why people are moving here. But in that dynamic of people moving in, it does create some challenges that we think we need to kind of look at and see how it's being addressed, and
maybe get some solutions.
and maybe get some ideas from.
But those
folks.
solutions are out there somewhere, not necessarily from us.
Exactly.
And it just occurs to me that this particular segment is going to be the exception, because it's the 3 of us talking among ourselves to whoever is listening. In the future, it's going to be people sitting with us, telling us what they know and what they desire and what they see in Marion County, and that's going to be the heart of what we're doing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So we're talking and we're coming up with ideas that's from our perspective. And once we start getting guests and interviewing people and getting feedback online, we'll be able to get a better perspective from other people in Marion County, so we can make sure we're encompassing the whole and not just what we think. We want to make sure we get what everyone thinks and get a good idea of what's going on and how we can change things. So.
Yep, that's why we call it a Marion County forum, because we want that kind of input from our audience. Okay, so we've talked about why. Go ahead.
Can I talk just a little bit more too about another little concept that we're trying to incorporate? And that is, this kind of popped up as we were trying to formulate what we would do with this broadcast and how we could kind of focus it. And the focus, as it turns out, is AI. Now, basically, we are using AI as a resource. It's a new technology. No one fully understands how it functions. No one fully has used it as a resource. But we think that we can ground some of the issues that we're talking about by tapping into it and asking it certain questions, getting certain responses, and then presenting that not only to our guests and discussing it with them among ourselves, but to the people that are listening. And just knowing that we're starting from that touchstone. And from there, we may find that there's information we can rely on. We may find that there's something we need to investigate a little bit more. But that's our touchstone in a way. And we'd like to let people know that that's something that underlines a lot of the approaches we're going to be taking with some of these issues.
Right.
So before we leave this section, in the beginning, you said it was 4 of us. I want to make sure we aren't remiss that we mentioned David Kuhn. He is our producer. He's behind the scenes right now. He's the one that set all this up for us. He's taking care of all of the technical aspects of this and giving us a lot of thought and ideas on helping us getting this started. So make sure we mention him.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
Our guru and our driving force. So, David, thank you.
What you got?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about why. Do we want to talk about how we decided to get this going?
Well,
I mean, for me,
go ahead.
When I was helping Robert run for office, and I was going around to different communities with him and sometimes without him campaigning, and it occurred to me, like Robert said before, that so many people can be so insulated or insular in their little neighborhood or gated community that it seemed to me that more open conversation and conversation back and forth was needed. Then I was at a meeting, and David happened to show up, and he was talking about trying to get a podcast going of his own, and it piqued my interest, and so I contacted him later and came in and sat down and began to discuss what I had in mind for this podcast, and he got excited about it. And as he's talking about it and some of the things that we could do and how it would be done and this and that, I got more excited. And so it kind of grew and I think we were excited because we know that it's something that is kind of needed, and that it's doable.
Absolutely.
And that we can do it right now, right here in Marion County.
Yeah, this is just a great opportunity to extend the debate, the discussion, the sharing of information, and for me, particularly people's stories. I mean, we may end up talking to any number of public people, whether they're in the arts or the sciences. It's wide open. Figures of faith, but they all have a story to tell, and they all Marion County residents and citizens trying to do something here. And I think that's a great way to explore solutions, because we generate ideas, people respond to the ideas, and maybe something happens. So it's a great start.
I think more on our level. Back when I was in Texas, one thing I learned, a phrase that I learned was leave a legacy. And it's really important to try to make a difference. We have a passion about this. It's not just something we're doing. It's because we're passionate about it. And I think that's going to come out in the series as we get going and get better at this. This is our learning process here. I think that's going to show. And if we get a lot of passionate people to come on and be guests on the show, that's going to make a difference where we can actually touch some people. If we can make a difference in a couple of people's lives outside of here, that's all worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What can we talk about now?
Anything you like, actually.
I think that was
open
about
season there.
20 minutes from what I was timing.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me.
About that, right? I think that was a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I didn't see the clock, but we're good, right?
I had my cell phone.
Oh, you're good.
I was watching.
All right. Well, then why don't we talk a little bit then about well, we talked about some of the things we were interested in. Do we think you want to go into kind of listing some of the things we're interested in
sure.
and why we're interested in those?
Sure.
Okay.
Robert, did you have any highlights that you wanted to go with first? Because I know you're...
Absolutely.
All right.
Excuse me. So as I mentioned earlier, I am a veteran, and where I'm at, there's several veterans. I know here in town, we have the Veteran Resource Center. One place I want to tap to try to get someone to come in and speak, but I spoke to at least 2 veterans where I'm at, and some of the topics we want to question them on is how do they transition from service, from getting out of the military, coming back to civilian life. Depending on what branch you were in and what you did, that could be very difficult. Mental health and well-being, the veteran suicide rate in this country is very high. It's at numbers that it shouldn't be there. There's a lot of help that we have out there, so we want to talk about that, make sure people are aware. Relationships and family life, it's really hard sometimes, even when you're serving, to have a family the way the military is, that send you off to the far reaches of the world. Your career and education, that's a resource that a lot of veterans use for the good, that they could get a good career and get some education that they could use after they get out of the military. Community and the support system, that's something we can improve on. Reflections on service. So I like to tell stories about when I was in the service, on the good times and sometimes even the bad times, because then I think everybody should serve, but that's my personal opinion. But you learn a lot, and it teaches you a lot to help you grow as a person. Advice to new veterans, so if anybody's thinking about going in, I definitely would 100% support that. And the role that the military plays in America, that's some of the things that we're going to talk about on that subject. It's more, that was just one of the first. Do you want me to talk about all of them?
Well, it's a taste, and I know Tom has a pretty good list too.
Yeah.
We just kind of bounce it back and forth.
Yeah.
Tom,
Well, when you were talking about veterans education, that sort of thing, it kind of ties into my interest in public education, because often in public education, one of the issues has been, are we educating kids to go to college and, you know, do a career that way, or are we educating kids to become good, intelligent workers out in the workforce, you know, in some kind of vocational area, plumbing, welding, whatever. And the military does have those kinds of classes also, educational components both ways. And if I was a high school counselor at this point, I would be telling kids, look at all those options. Don't just hone in on going to college because that's what some of your friends are, or that's what your parents want. Maybe that's not for you. That there are other opportunities out there. Military is one where they can go and earn the resources to come back out and go into a training program, whether it's college or vocational school or tech school, something that they love to do. And I think the bottom line on any kind of education, it's nice to know that you could have a job and make money, but it's much more important for both mental health and happiness to do something you like to do. And if you do something you like to do, you're going to be a success and you're going to feel fulfilled, and probably the money will come with that, no matter what it is. When I went into teaching, I did not think that I would be, you know, well off or whatever. But because of the opportunities in teaching to advance in my career, it also advanced, you know, my earning power. And in public education, you still have some kind of a pension plan, and so my pension plan has enabled me to retire, you know, at a fairly comfortable living level. So you're right about that. Education is important, and like all topics that we're going to talk about in this series, they all kind of connect. You know, Marion County isn't a bunch of discrete little units spread out. Everything is connected, whether it's environmental quality, whether it's housing patterns, whether it's education, whether it's how we treat our aged citizens. You know, all that is connected to making Marion County a good place to live. And we want to be sure we highlight some of that, you know, complication that also makes things interesting and growing.
I can't wait to hear that segment, because I think, well, a couple of segments, because that one's going to be one of our main ones. But when you talked about counseling and going to school, I remember when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, it was very difficult. And if we, once I got older and I started doing some training in the different positions I was in, I learned that you could look at people and try to figure out what they would be good at and try to push them that way. And I don't know, I didn't listen to my counselors when I was in school. That was the problem. If I would have listened, it would have been a whole lot easier. But, you know, I think if we can get that one right on, we're going to help a lot of people. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I do know, again, my education background. In high schools, they have, of course, there's all kinds of testing that goes on. But I think it was in my junior high school that we did a test. One was an academic test, but the other one was actually the ASVAB, which I don't know if you've heard of that, but
Yes.
that's the test that the military gives to new recruits to find out
Everyone has to
what
take
they're
that
good
test
at.
to get enlisted. So if you don't pass that, you won't get in. So
Exactly.
military definitely knows.
Well, we at my public junior high at that point, we took that test so that it would help us think about: do we want to take more of a vocational track in education, or do we want to take more of an academic track? So I'm not saying that it was used to track kids. It was used to inform kids about what their nascent abilities are and what their inclinations were, to help them maybe decide which way to go. So yeah, there's sometimes testing can be good, and sometimes testing can be overdone and overemphasized, and then maybe it's not so good. But that's another thing we'll probably talk about when we get into that education
Sure, we
section.
will.
Yeah, let me piggyback on that a little bit too, because one of my particular interests, certainly with my background, is the public sector, the public service sector. And that encompasses teachers. It certainly encompasses healthcare workers, librarians, any sort of public institution. Hey, public works. That's all part of it. But more to the point of those that offer resources and guidance. I've started to develop some topics and contact some people in the libraries, because I don't think people realize what a resource that is. And that kind of parallels not only the testing that you would have to give somebody a direction, but then to explore it. And as it turns out, librarians don't just check out books anymore. So I'm an advocate for libraries and librarians, and I'm looking forward to having some representatives come on and talk about what the resource is. And I just really think that that's going to be a revealing segment for the community, and maybe encourage more people to go there. Because if you think libraries are just for checking out books now, think again.
That's right. Yeah, like a lot of things in our county is as a need has developed for public service and services. I think the county has tried, in its, with the limitations that it has, but it's tried to address some of those needs as
Well,
best
yeah,
it could.
and then there's the other segment of the public service, as I said, public works. There's an influx of population, of growth. There is a stress on our public utilities, and we have to respond to it. Love to get some of those people on. There's ordinary citizens that say, I need help with this, whether it's flooding or storm cleanup damage and that. And then you certainly have the people that are doing that work. And it'd be great to get some of them talking about what they're doing and the challenges they're facing. So we're looking forward to that. Got to get a hold of some of them.
Yeah.
If you know anyone, let us know.
Yeah, as you can see, we're kind of passionate about certain topics, and we're hoping that list of topics that we can talk about grows as we get more people talking to us by coming to our website and giving comments or putting comments wherever
On the YouTube
page.
Yeah.
So this will only fly. This concept will only fly if listeners are interested enough to participate. We need their participation. So
I think we can get the interest because the topics that we have, just the few that we talked about today, to me, seems like it's going to be very interesting. And just going off of that, you have so many smaller topics that you can go into that this can really make a difference. That, like we said, we want to have Marion Voices, which is going to be our first series, and make sure we're getting the voice of Marion out there.
Yep. Okay. That
That wasn't 20 minutes.
was not.
No,
How long was that?
that's a little bit shorter.
Okay.
I thought maybe 10.
Is that all? Oh my.
We went pretty quick.
I guess so.
Well, Tom, I thought you were going to embellish your list because we could get a little more detailed, but we were getting detailed on the things we were talking about.
Yeah.
And it's a little premature to drill down too much on them
Right.
because we're waiting for the feedback.
Right.
But at the same time, we've all been out there in the community talking to people. I know each of you have done some of that already, and I was getting a great response. I'm going to confess we've got our first subscriber already because I talked to someone, I explained what we're doing, and they said, I'll subscribe, just let me know when. And that's an indication of the interest. But the interest is what we're giving to the people that want to know about things about Marion County. And it doesn't have to necessarily be news as much as trends or issues. And we got plenty of those. You know, it's out there every day, season to season. If you want to talk about Marion County, this is horse country. There's a lot of elements that make up Marion County that are unique to it. And the fact that it's horse county, a horse country. And I'm thinking of the World Equestrian Center. I mean, that is on the list of places to visit by a lot of national magazines. And it's in our backyard. If people haven't been there yet, they may want to. And if they have been there, we'd like to find out what they think of it, because that's expanding. Do you guys have any other things that are popping up that you see growth in Marion or?
Well, it's interesting you bring up the horse industry and the expansion of like the World Equestrian Center, because sort of the other side of that is we're also increasing a lot in population. And if you go to the southern part of the county particularly, you will see that many of the communities like Marion Oaks, like Stone Creek, and there are others down there that so many I can't even mention them or remember them, but they're all expanding. And so they're building houses. I mean communities. They don't just build one house anymore.
Yeah.
They go in and they put up, maybe 50 houses at the same time. They're kind of springing up like mushrooms. Well, you have that kind of development for residential, but the land that they're using used to be agricultural land.
Exactly.
So there's a little bit of a conflict, I think.
You've got a transition going on here.
There's a transition, and how, is it? Are we somehow selling out our agricultural economic sector for residential and services sector, or is there some kind of balance, or do we just let market forces,
that's
dictate
a good question.
that?
And of course, that's at a county level, they make some decisions on that.
Yeah, it's just all about zoning.
Going back to the beginning when we were first formulating this, Robert was talking about infrastructure. And boy, any way you want to cut it, that's part of what we've just talked about now. Those new developments, the new, I don't know if you can call them industries, but sectors that are coming into play in Marion County. Marion County is a big county too. I mean, on the other side, we have parks. We have some great parks, and we want to keep that, maintain those. So, yeah, where's the balance?
Yeah, that was a big topic. You talked about agriculture, but green space when I was campaigning, that was one of the things that was a concern. I know in our development, they just tore down a whole group of trees where a lot of the animals that lived in those trees, they're now having to relocate, and it's causing some problems. They're walking through the neighborhoods, trying to figure out where they have to go. So it's definitely infrastructure is on our list to talk to some people around here, find out how we're going to deal with it, making sure we're making the right moves, because we don't want to have this become a flood potential because we don't have enough drainage to get water out the way. We want to make sure we have enough trees. We want to make sure we have enough farmland. We want to make sure all of that is working. Why we're still growing, because Marion County is on the top of counties that's growing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing that struck me too is as I go through the city of Ocala, for instance, I see blocks of green spaces for sale, like 15 acres of woodlot next to Marion Woods Retirement Center, or 5 acres of wood lot over in the north part of town. There's these little pieces that are sort of scattered all over the city. And I keep thinking to myself, I say, well, you know, how do we keep green space, but whoever owns that space bought it for an investment property. So how do we balance the need of the owner for disposing of that property the way he wants to, or keeping green space within the city so that we don't end up looking like downtown Manhattan where there's no green space at all.
Luckily, we do have a lot of green space that we kind of forget. So on the east side of Marion County, the National Forest is over there. That's pretty large. I don't know the exact land on it, but I remember I was watching Chopper Cops, and they highlight that when it comes on in the beginning. So we do have green space that Florida has a lot of that's available to us. Hopefully we can maintain it. A lot of it is wetlands, so it should be protected.
Well, the question is not so much that whether we have it or not, but is it in accessible places for people? I mean, the National Forest over on the east side of Marion County, that's great, but if I'm sitting, in a neighborhood that's all concrete and asphalt and whatever,
Exactly.
unless I make the decision to go there to hike or whatever, it doesn't do me any good right there.
No.
As far as I know.
We need trees.
We need trees to clean up the air and stuff. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's sort of like a benefit, but it's sort of right there where I can't really enjoy it, I guess I'm trying to say. So there is that. And speaking of the National Forest over there, that's another issue that we could talk about is, that's land in the county that is not producing the kind of tax revenue that residential areas or other parts of the county produce. So how is how's the county dealing with, getting the tax revenue it needs to help with all this development and infrastructure and whatever?
If we turn to the county and say, okay, how do we develop this properly? If you can't get tax revenue, how about recreational value? If you start attracting people that are going to use this,
or how do you where are our congressional representatives in trying to increase the amount of subsidy or whatever you call it that the federal government gives counties that have this federal land?
Sure, I think it's a question for all levels, from Congress down to county to community.
Right. Yep.
You want to go into taxes on day one? That's what we're doing.
That's another topic we could.
I would like to make another observation about the rediscovery and redevelopment of the city of Ocala. Ocala had a boom time in decades past, and things have changed. Obviously, when you're competing with everything from Disney to Universal Studios, people lose sight of the springs. We've got the greatest natural springs, in my opinion, in the world here. That's a huge resource. And I'm thinking the time for the city of Ocala to rediscover itself, to redevelop, to attract more restaurants, boutiques, galleries, bike shops. Yeah, we got some great bike shops here. There's a lot of different elements that are being brought into the city to increase that tax base and attract people. Hey, the good news today is I'm parking free in downtown Ocala. Thank you for the holidays, So there's ways of getting people here, and now we need to give them something to enjoy while they're here. And they're working on it, but it's a work in progress. So if anyone's listening, help us out here. What could we do? What could we tell the people that are running this, say, here's some great ideas. And I know people are stepping up because one of them is the producer of this show. He's making things happen in Ocala. So we need more of that.
Yeah.
And this might be a forum for some more of that.
So, I agree with you to a certain extent. I think I'd like to see expansion. I'd like to see us grow. I'd like to see certain things happen to draw people here. But I know there's a lot of people that they were drawn here because of the lack of development, the lack of people. So we're getting more. What do you say? What would you say to someone that says, I don't want to see that?
Well, I'm talking about downtown Ocala, the city of. And there's a lot of empty spaces here that need to be filled. And slowly but surely, they're doing that. You're absolutely right on that. And we're back to what Tom was saying about the apartment complexes, the communities popping up like mushrooms. At some point, even the developers are realizing that they're overextended. Now, it's too bad after they start tearing up the land, knocking down the trees and going, I don't know whether we're going to be able to fill these apartments, and then they stop. Well, we've lost something there already. So better planning in a lot of ways. And I'll be the first one to agree with you, Robert. I moved here because there is less development at the time. And I'd like to keep it manageable. So good luck with that.
And that's where we can be a help, I think, to community understanding by getting somebody like maybe the president of the development agency to come in, or the business bureau folks.
County commissioner might have people that they'd want to have speak to us. And
that's right, to talk about some of those kinds of issues. And
or even the mayor.
And even the mayor. But you know what? It would make it a whole lot better if we had questions from our listeners that we could then hit the
that's right.
elected officials with,
We have the help of AI and a few good men here, but we need more help. And that's where they come in.
Right. So, and again, dovetailing on what we've said, and again, it just emphasizes how everything is so interconnected. I've heard in my time here, people are concerned about groundwater. You talked about the springs.
Absolutely.
They're concerned about groundwater and the water resources of the county. And my wife belongs to the Master Gardeners, and I know that the Master Gardener people, which has a pretty good unit here in Marion County, by the way, they're concerned about overwatering. Like everybody has irrigation systems, and when my wife and I go walking in the neighborhoods, we'll see irrigation systems on right after a rain, which makes no sense. Or they'll be on at this time of year, which the grass is not growing. I mean, it's just sitting there.
Well, it's the dormant season.
It's the dormant season, but yet they're still watering their lawn, and it's like, that's a waste of water, in our opinion. Now, I'd have to ask a water resource person, is that water wasted? Does it just evaporate and gone, or does it percolate down into the soil?
Definitely is.
I don't know. But I think, that's some of the questions that I know I have when I walk through and see that stuff.
Well,
the other thing, besides water resources, there's a big push among the agricultural extension folks at the University of Florida, and Master Gardeners, and the Native Plant Society, and the Wildflower Society about doing more landscaping with native plants and pollinator-friendly plants, because the less plants you have that pollinators can feed off of, the less pollinators you have, and those pollinators are the ones that pollinate the orange groves or
helps the agriculture
food
in the county.
Sources and things. And then, just like we're spraying or watering at non-productive times of the year, we're also spraying chemicals at non-productive times of the year, probably too. And too much chemical stuff also kills the pollinators. And I know it frustrates some landowners that create a pollinator garden in their front yard, and their neighbor sprays with insecticide, which blows onto their pollinator garden, and it kills off the pollinators. So, there's those kinds of issues too.
Yeah, we need some good input, and I'm thinking maybe a guest from Marion Master Gardeners, Marion County, and the UF Extension, Native Plant Society. We've got a whole segment right
Time's
there, too.
life.
Yeah, well, we've there are some excellent instructors or people who can give talks, and they have been giving talks to Stone Creek and Top of the World.
Sure.
They often go there to give talks to their garden groups and that sort of thing.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about, because I know at Stone Creek they come in and they make sure that our rain sensors are good, that we're only watering on certain days, we're only watering certain times of the year. It even has a sensor on it that tells you when you're supposed to do. In your community, do they do that? Do they come out and make sure people have the right equipment, updating their equipment?
No, because I'm in a neighborhood that, for some reason, it got grandfathered out of the city. So I've got Ocala City all around me, but my neighborhood is not in the city, and so we fall under different rules and things. And according to master gardeners, although there are laws about not watering at certain times and all that stuff, there's no enforcement mechanism. There's no teeth in the laws, no consequences if you are doing that stuff. So that's it almost looks like some laws are put on the books for feel good, look good, but don't interfere with what property owners want to do.
That is policies and laws, and you're right.
Yeah.
The enforcement is the key. And maybe understanding is the key, too, to say, this is not helpful, this is detrimental. And whether it's spraying, watering, there's probably ways that we could come up with that might offer solutions. Not us saying, but through this podcast. Yeah. So there's people out there with ideas, and that's another reason to get them involved.
I think this is a solution. You say we can. I think just by bringing awareness to this fact and people learning more about what happens when they water their lawn, if we talk about it, bring a master gardener in, and we can even bring in the water company and talk, hey, this is what happens with your water, how much is being used, how much we have, what it's doing with the runoff. We can make some ground with that. That's what we're here for, right?
I'm all for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, all of those kinds of things impact the developers who are developing those big housing divisions. We talked about among ourselves the fact that sometimes those housing developments go up with not enough information or forward thinking about, well, how's that going to impact our school system, or how's it going to impact the environment to tear out 100 acres of trees and put in asphalt and concrete. Well,
here's where I chime in with Robert too. This podcast is a way of presenting the idea that they need more transparency, more information shared, because often these things kind of go under the radar. And we're lifting the radar off for a little bit and broadcasting what you need to know as opposed to what you thought you knew.
Yeah, I think the information is out there, but the average citizen isn't going to look at the information because of where it's located. So good example, we had just tore out a whole section of trees, and a lot of our residents, they were complaining, hey, we didn't know they were doing that. Well, the information was there from day one that they were going to do that, and people just need to get it. So that's something that we can help with. If there's some information out there that we need to talk about, we can bring it on the podcast, bring in the person that's in charge of that information, make sure people are aware of what's going on. And that's what we're here for, to make things a little bit easier for people instead of going to the library, because I'm really interested to find out what librarians do, because everything's on the internet. You can say, hey, maybe I can just listen to this podcast while I'm driving to and from the grocery store or something, and I can learn a little something that's going to make it better for everybody around.
The resources we have that you don't know about or would like to know more about. And, hey, that's our public service.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, too. I would really think we were being successful if we were the information that we were able to broadcast, people think about it, and then do some investigation on their own.
Sure,
that
absolutely.
They then kind of start becoming more active in learning about the county or learning about whatever particular issue that they find interesting. So
Yeah, and that changes from day to day. You know, welcome to the holiday season. Who knows what's coming next week? Fortunately, I don't think it's going to be a hurricane or a tornado. So, but that can change like that, and maybe we can be another forum for that.
Christmas is coming.
Christmas is coming. You ready?
All right, I think we did a good job. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe.
You want to give the closing remarks, Tom?
Sure. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We hope you gained some insight in what we are trying to do. Marion Voices will fall short of our expectations if you, our listeners, don't tell us what you think and what you care about. We will highlight some of your comments in subsequent shows and have our guests respond to them. Go to our website, click on the like button, leave a comment or question, tell your family, and share us with others. So tune in next time and we'll explore the rich tapestry of trends, stories, and experiences in our community. Remember, your voice matters. Join us next time for our first episode where we'll delve into unlocking potential student performance in Marion County schools. Remember to subscribe to our channel and share us with your friends and family again. Send us your questions and comments. Go to the website at whatever the website is. Until next time, stay safe, be a good neighbor, and thanks for listening.